Well, in 1980s, actually in 1970s, those critiques have already started. Welfare state is increasingly was um, criticized by, well, you could say, uh, preventing labor force become as cheap as it was needed to be in Marxian sense, but in neoclassical sense, well, making people, making unemployed people too comfortable so that they would reject to find jobs, at least jobs with low wage levels, and basically as a result, the number of people that are dependent on the welfare system is increasing to unsustainable level, according to this view. Of course, this view can be challenged in different ways, and according to some idea, before 1960s, especially certain ethnic minorities in the United States were not using welfare state as much as white, ethnically white or ethnically European actually people, because some people whose, as I said, as I might have said before, whose skin color is white are not counted as white in the United States. Actually, white means European ethnicity in the United States, not the skin color. Because, as I said before, having your skin color white doesn't mean that you are white, basically. Um, you can even be black if you have black ancestry. If your skin color is white, you are still black because you have a black ancestry in the past. Um, anyway, um, that's one of the critiques. And the other critiques is it was just an economic crisis created by different factors. Uh, uh, but in the end, welfare state was targeted at the end of this crisis to make the labor force cheaper. Um, so, but for one reason or the other, the welfare state, the extent of welfare state was decreased in 1980s, and increasing critiques were started to brought to the welfare state. Even though it did not completely vanish, its size is relatively less now. And just like inequality, it could also be argued, especially between Keynesian and neoclassical views, there could be some argument which might uh, think of an optimal size of welfare state, maybe, which might be beneficial, might create needed benefits, but uh, it could not have the harms that were dreaded by the neoclassical economists mostly, and right-wing politicians mostly. So, uh, again, we have just touched the welfare state, and now we will go to a different subject, which is the way inequality, the way there could be a correlation between the capitalist development level and the inequality. Possibility of this development was stated by an economist called Kuznets. He argued that at the starting point of the capitalism, where GDP level increases, certain groups with relatively more assets and connections benefit more from this development, and as a result, they will basically able to get extensive returns, while mass the workforce flows from the villages to the cities, which makes the wages very, which reduces the wage level to very low values. As a result, the inequality level between the in the society will increase, but this will only continue up to a certain point. After a certain point, this source of workers that are flowing to the cities will decrease, and as a result, the labor force will become more scarce, increasingly more scarce. And as a result, the income will, the wage level will increase, income will distribute more evenly, uh, and the inequality level start to uh, increase. And as labor becomes more scarce, also the more skilled of them will be more demanded instead of getting a mass amount of labor as cheap as possible, which also increases the wages and well, for having skilled labor, now you need to pay higher wage to the workers so that they can maintain or let's say at first earn that skill, those skills, or get those skills. Basically, this is Kuznets curve. So this is log GDP per capita. You can see that there are excessive outliers. This is Gini index. So, for example, here Haiti, for example, has a high inequality level with very low GDP per capita, while Egypt has a very low Gini index, and although it has a middle level of development. At this end, you see most inequality level is more restricted at the top end, although USA is clearly an outlier here. Well, one thing that is actually contradicting with the Kuznets idea is the fact that the United States has seen a high increase in inequality, while the development level continues to increase. So the country itself was moving into this direction and assumed to pass the peak point, but still, when it moves to this direction, the inequality level increases, not decreases in the United States. To some extent, maybe this could be related with the increasing immigration from the rest of the world, which might be also a factor, because now, I mean, this cheap flow of labor is coming from the other countries, not internally, but other countries. This might be an important factor which might sustain or create this new increase in inequality level in these countries. Although, well, how much the initial equality, the state of 1950s and 60s was sustainable, and whether capitalism needs a certain level of inequality, that's also, I think, subject of discussion. Even though there could be certain hypotheses, this increase in inequality after 1980s should be studied in more detail. So the conditions that are actually bringing inequality actually might be more complex at one country, and even if it is created by those immigrant waves, global factors might also be affecting the inequality level in the countries, and maybe also the different conditions of different regions in different parts of the world might create different opportunities for the national actors in every country. So this is the background in which I have discussed different aspects of inequality, which was not in the main part of the lecture. Now we can start looking to the main part of the lecture, and our starting point is the Gini coefficient. So Gini coefficient is created is an index that is measuring the overall income level of the society. So we have a graph. This is the 0 point, and this graph is measuring the on x-axis we measure the overall population. So it starts from the 0% here, and it goes all the way to the 100%, and it starts from usually one which has less of what we are measuring, less wage, less wealth level, less income. You can even create a Gini index for the grade level, for example. And here you measure how much each group has. So when you move here, for example, at this point, you are at the 1%. So you measure how much of, for example, if this is measuring income, the bottom 1% has, and the point on this triangle shows you the income overall from the overall national income, overall output level. What is the share that bottom 1% has? For example, if this is 10%, then you measure, or 5%, how much the 10% has. If this is 50%, you measure how much 50% has. Here you measure how much the 49% has. So as a result, you get a curve. This curve is called Lorentz curve, which separates this triangle into two parts, A and B. Note that if the country was completely equal, in that case, Lorentz curve will be just this side of the triangle, because in this case, for example, 1% will have 1% share, 50% will have 50% share. So basically, I mean, the length of the triangle here, I mean the lower triangle created by the point, this point will be the same. Here, of course, it is not the same. I mean, if you think here a triangle like this, or if you think this is this at this length, they are not the same. I mean, this length and this length are not the same, basically. But if we had completely equal case, in that case, this length and this length would be the same, basically. In reality, of course, again, as I said, this length, the vertical length will be for any point on Lorentz curve less than the horizontal length. So you have a Lorentz curve like this, and we have A and B. So what we do is we are, we are taking the ratio of the area A to the total area of the triangle, basically. And as a result, we find the Gini index. As we become more unequal, Gini index will become larger. So countries with higher Gini index have basically are basically more unequal. Well, according to the parameter or variable we are measuring. I mean, in terms of the variable, which is our subject. If you don't have data for many points, basically, you can simply separate them. You can just have data points for, well, at the one end as high as 1,000 or 1,000 point, or 10, 5, 3, or as low as 3 points, basically. And draw your Lorentz curve accordingly. And if you have smaller numbers, your Lorentz curve will be a collection of straight lines, basically. If you, for example, have 4 points, in that case you have data for the bottom 25%, third 25% just above the bottom, second 25% just above the top, and top 25%. You have data for them. And in each case, actually, however, you have data for example, in order to find Lorentz curve, you find the share of the bottom 25%, and then bottom 50%, and then bottom 75%. Okay. One moment. This one I have already discussed. So, for example, this could be the graph for 25%. When we have the 4 data points, this is the share of the first 25%. This is the share of the bottom 50%. This is the share of the bottom 75%, and of course the bottom 100% gets all the share of whatever we are measuring. So, of course, it is difficult to calculate the area of A. Instead, we calculate the area of the triangle and area of the area B by calculating the area of this triangle and area of this trapezoid, which consists of a triangle and a rectangle. So next, we will calculate the area of, basically Gini index for a data that is given to us. So that will be done in the next part.